Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Wagwan, are you there? What's good? And welcome to episode 12 of the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast. I'm your host, Glenn, aka G Ransom. And today's panel discussion will be centered around a truly tried and trivialized question: does wealth equate to happiness? In doing so, the panel and I will reveal our personal relationships and views towards money and finances, its value and significance or lack thereof, if it's possible to be poor and happy, and whether any amount of riches can truly impact one's quality of life. But before we delve any further, if you aren't already a follower or would like to learn more about the show, major announcements, and stay up to date on our latest offerings, definitely check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at JJC Podcast for the latest information and our content updates. And if you know anything about me, you know for a fact that I hate to eat alone. So with me at the round table, I'm joined by none other than my brothers in bond, Dyron, Chunky, Francis, and Dre. Say what's up to the people.
Yo, it's D Black saying what's good.
Your boy Franchise, Francis, what's up?
You, Dre.
Ha. It's creepy as
Chunky with his
doing.
Yeah, Chunky was weird voice.
Yeah, dude.
Nothing changes.
Come with the energy, man. I want to hear a Wagwan Are You There from everybody next time.
Wagwan.
Wagwan. How you do?
Oh, man.
Rubber waistline.
Mr. Rubber
waistline.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting warm, so it gets warm now.
It's
Oh, we
more
breaking out
elastic.
that green Jello for D Black because it's getting warm.
I'm about to get the mesh marina with the red, gold, and green. You know what I
my
mean?
God.
You're wearing a
Taco
mesh
meat.
tank top?
You never seen the mesh marinas, the mesh tank tops? Yeah, bro.
That's the
You never watched
Jamaican
Cool Runnings?
clothing essential.
Can you get a mesh V-neck?
Oh my gosh.
No. We already talked about this. Like, if someone ever made a Jamaican, like, I guess, dress up kit, it will definitely include the mesh marina, the Rasta belt, some, chancletas or some flip flops, and definitely some cargo shorts. That'll be it. And the dreadlocks, of course. That'll be it.
What about the what is the hat? The hat that holds all the dreads in?
Oh, like
Yeah.
the Rasta beanie.
Yeah, that's a beanie, all right.
Oh,
Beanie
man, we
on
got. I was gonna say, Jay, we got to bring the beanie gang back.
We're gonna bring the blue gnome with the mesh marina, for the.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Not again with the nose.
Hey, Glenn, click on the link.
This video, this picture from Dre is hilarious, man.
Oh my
This
god.
picture is hilarious. Yo.
Oh, that has
That's what
been
it
all
is.
over it.
Mesh marina taco meat, this is gonna be a hot boy summer.
Oh,
Yeah, I was about to say that, man. Like you was
Oh, no.
trying to be chosen. I see. Trying to get chose. Trying to get chose. All right. I do you, bro.
Oh, what is practicing humps?
I don't know. Hey, I don't know how your girl gonna feel about that, but hey,
Yo,
consequences, right?
she's ready. She's like, yes. She's like, yes. Bring the marina out.
Yes, daddy.
I've been hitting the stacks. You know what I mean? So I'm getting ready.
no,
So-
please don't. Please
That's
Since
don't.
we're on the realm of finances, we'd like to dedicate today's Rep Yours to the Dough app. The Dough app is an investing app with unlimited commission-free stock trading and zero account minimums. Dough app is available for download on your smart device via the Apple and Google Play stores. So definitely feel free to check them out at dough.com. That's DOUGH. And if asked, let them know that the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast sent you. So start your trading today. And let's get into the topic. But before we jump in, we just want to mention a quick disclaimer. First and foremost, we are not financial advisors, nor should any of the points referenced today be considered financial advice. The goal of today's discussion is to solely present our thoughts from a personal and cultural lens on the importance of exploring, raising awareness, and analyzing one's financial and quality of life conditions, environment, and understanding. However, if you are a financial advisor, financial tech economist, or subject matter expert in the realm of finances, and of course, a listener of the show, definitely drop us your info at jjcpod@gmail.com, as we love to feature you for your added insight. So let's jump into this. I'm gonna start off with D Black.
Uh,
Naira Boys, D Black, and Francis.
Oh my gosh.
How
do
would
me.
you define being poor versus being wealthy, and which would you rather be?
Poor or wealthy?
Poor or wealthy? How would you define either one?
Well, I would rather be wealthy than poor.
But how would you define that? How would you define
Well,
wealthy?
I mean, I'm not trying to get all eclectic with it, but poor as in just, I mean, it's to be without and without finances and yeah, and wealth is like, I feel like, you know, an abundance of finance. So I don't know, for me, yeah. That's, I mean, I choose wealth always. I ain't gonna be broke.
Facts.
I mean, is there an okay? I guess the question back to you is like, because when you frame it like that, are you trying to say that maybe there's like a deeper
You missed your opportunity.
context to
Well,
it?
I'll address it since I'm posing it. 'Cause first, we're trying to understand, okay, what's your relationship with the definitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, wealth, essentially, by dictionary definition, is amassing amount of riches and material wealth, or material abundance, an abundance of things, essentially. It could be taken as. So, if you want to take it out of context, you can be wealthy in health, but not necessarily wealthy in riches, if you want to look at it subjectively.
Okay.
But the core definition is, of course, material assessment. Can you put a dollar amount on this? This is how wealthy you are. So it'll come back and bite you. We're going to come back to that.
Oh man.
First,
No,
it may not bite you, but we'll see if you're going to jump around.
You had the ball in your hand. You can do whatever you
Yeah.
want with it, and you just fumbled.
No, I
No, wait, I want
definitely-
to hear the breakdown of the poor though, because he gave me the breakdown of the wealth.
Poor is essentially without. I mean, you
Yeah.
can be wealthy financially, but poor morally. You know what I mean? But that's another nuance and another subjective thing. But first, we want to define what's your take on poor versus wealthy, because we're going to get into, can you be poor and happy then? So, let's franchise. What's your take?
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'll definitely be wealthy versus poor, especially when you've been, when you have nothing, and when you poor, I classify that as inability to like secure or the funds to buy the essential needs to survive, right? You can barely even pay for water. Maybe you can't even afford to have an apartment, just you even get barely enough money to buy food, for your family. And so it's really, to even go technical with it, the pretty much if you're making below, like for a family of four, if you make less than 26,500, I believe, in 2021. So yeah, so like the poverty line is really, for a family of four, is really scary. So, and wealthy for me, I think, like you said, Glenn, is you can look at it in different ways, but for me, I think it's really freedom. It's just freedom. It's just the ability to do things. It kind of tie back to time, because you can be rich and you can be wealthy. And I think the difference between the two is really time, because you can make decision on how you utilize your time and the time you spend with family and friends, and generational wealth that you pass down to your grandkids and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I define it.
So let me drop, since you mentioned the word rich, do you guys think there's a difference between rich and wealthy? If anybody wants to take the floor on that one.
Definitely. Well, rich is it's pretty much the, having a job is the money you earn. So like a doctor, like, we can classify ourselves as being rich, depending on your income level. But then, because then rich is like, and wealthy is like when you don't have to work to earn the money that you make. So if, you work for the money you earn when you're rich, and when you're wealthy, you don't have to work the same amount of hours to earn the amount. So working is an option for you to be considered wealthy. So that's where investment and all that stuff come into play. And you own infrastructures and stuff like that. So you, like, one funny skit that I saw like few years ago was, I think it was Chris Rock. He said Shaq is rich, but the guy who writes Shaq's check is wealthy. It's like, it's just kind of just a way to kind of look at it too.
Like I said, I think there's mainly just a distinction between, when it comes to rich and wealthy. I mean, kind of like you gave that example with Shaq, but I think it's even, deeper than that. Like Bezos is rich, but he'll never be on the same level as the Forbes family. You know what I mean? Because that's money
Bezos
that
is not. You don't think
What?
Bezos is wealthy? What?
Bezos number one, bro.
Do you know he just quit Amazon? Like he can do whatever he wants.
Bezos
I mean,
the
I'm talking about,
richest-
but
the
he
richest
doesn't.
man
He don't
in the
got
world.
generational wealth. He don't got
What?
You ain't got
This is the number
generational
one.
wealth.
This is the number
Wow.
one
Oh,
richest
wait.
man in the world, bro.
Steve, like, I think I definitely think you got Jeff Bezos like messed up. I think he has like $600 billion, something crazy like that. Like,
But,
the money
I mean-
he has is like
Too
Yo,
late.
I'm not saying he got crazy. I don't doubt he
You
has
fumbled
crazy
the ball
money.
again.
No, honestly, I'm sticking with it. Well, if I fumbled it, I'm gonna leave it on the ground, okay? Because
Just take a seat. Take a
nah,
seat.
I really feel like no.
Yo,
because,
Jeff Bezos got
I guess I
money,
don't know what. I
bro.
guess I really don't know what the Forbes family is worth.
Well,
I just read a book where it
Well,
was like, huh?
I guess that's
I'll
why we're
just-
trying to break it down. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, because
I'll
it's like
correct my-
their money will go into their kids, and I don't.
Jeff Bezos' money will go on to another country.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I threw the number 600 out there, but it's 200 billion, which is still a ridiculous amount of money. So I actually think that his money will. I mean, I know that there's some really interesting takes that some of these really wealthy quote unquote people take with like actually not giving their money, not passing their money down to families. I know like there's been some people who've made these pacts to like, instead of giving their money to their children, they have a way to and give it back or whatever. But my whole take with rich versus poor or wealthy versus poor, I think is a really not to be the in the middle man, right? Because I think there are people who are probably quote unquote poor who would think someone is wealthy, but there's a person who's wealthy, so to speak, right? But and they have a house, they have all these things, but if they lose their job, they'll lose their house, right? Whereas you may think that someone who's poor, right, who's maybe working check to check, but maybe they have no debt, right? So what I mean? It's that whole like I don't know if there's like a I don't know if there's like a very clear line between rich versus poor, because again, I think with all these things, there's like a lot of nuance as far as the right. There's some people who really are big on like using a lot of credit, right, and having right, and there's some people who are like anti-credit, right, like I don't owe anyone money, right. So it's like a very interesting thing. I think that you can be a wealthy person, like I think Glenn mentioned, you can be a wealthy person who is poor, right, morally, right. But I don't know if the two. I know we'll talk about this, but I don't know if the two are mutually.
So, which would you rather be then, if you had to pick?
Absolutely. If I had to pick between, I would definitely be wealthy.
Show me the money.
Yeah, well, I want to be able to walk into a grocery store and be able to get whatever I want. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think that's how I almost consider wealth, right? Like, can you go into the grocery store and like get whatever you want and not have to worry about like, is your debit card going to go through? So that's in my very normal world, that's what I consider wealth, right? Can I go to the grocery store and just get whatever I want and then not have to worry about what I'm putting in the cart? Am I going to think about the card going through whatever?
Man. Wealth is definitely when laws that apply to common men do not apply to you.
Well, yes, but I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep it.
We'll get into that.
I mean, those are.
Hold on.
That's part of it.
I mean, there are criminals that laws don't apply to them because they can get away with stuff. Anyway,
Chunky's take. Yeah.
My thing on wealth, I look at wealth as in what you said, Glenn, that health wealth and that mental wealth, right? And I'll put it out there. Like in college, I wasn't wealthy. I was poor.
Everybody was.
Right. So, but I was mentally wealthy because look at where we are today.
Full of knowledge.
So
college dropout album.
That explains a lot. And when I look at poor and what Francis said, a family of four, if you're making 26.5, like there are teachers that aren't even making it up, but they live in poverty. And it's not because they're not smart enough. It's just that we're not paying them enough. So when I look at being poor, I can make very poor decisions financially, right? And I can have all this money. Literally, you heard of people winning the lottery, having a crap load of money, and are mentally poor and lose all of that money. So when you look at wealth, I don't look at wealth as just finances. I look at that as health. I look at that as a mentality, and I look at it as a way of how I run my life, making better decisions. So I'm not caught up in money because it's just like you can always make it based off the decisions that you make. You can always blow it based off the decisions that you make. When you talk to someone that has wealth and wisdom and knowledge, it's the most enlightening thing ever. You could talk to someone that's very wealthy and say some really dumb shit. So I look at it this way: it's just that I would rather be wealthy in all points of the spectrum, just not money.
Gotcha.
Right. I
That's
agree
an
with that.
interesting point on that as well. And I guess I'll just add my tidbit before we get to our next point. You know, poor is just basically kind of encompasses what everyone else said. It's just not having time to do the things you want to do or would like to do. I think time is a very important part of being poor, or identifying with that, because basically you're on borrowed time. Your time is going to everyone else and all your necessities. You can't really live the life you want to live. And that's when you're poor. When you're wealthy, yeah, you have that flexibility. You're able to move around. You're able to do things. You don't have to worry about your debit card declining on you. You don't have to use coupons anymore. That's up to you. But I mean, I know some people that stay wealthy by saving, and they know a part of being wealthy is also knowing like how things work. Yeah, being frugal, of course, depending on that. But kind of like always advancing yourself is, to me, wealth. Like knowledge is power, and being able to constantly learn, that's wealth. When you're poor, you just don't have the time to do that. So which would I rather be? Of course, wealthy. And as far as being rich and wealthy, is a good analogy made. Basically, when you're rich, you could make it 6 figures, 7 figures, but you're still on someone else's clock. So it's just like that day that you stop reporting in, that's the day that money ends. And to me, that's the difference between rich and wealthy. You're not on anyone's clock when you're wealthy. All right, so let's get to the next point. Where does money rank on your list of necessities, if at all? So basically, how important is money to you, if it is important, and why?
That's a loaded question.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
And I say it's important for the simple fact that if I cannot afford my necessities, I'm going to have an issue. And we all understand this in this group. If I can't put food in my stomach, gas in my car, or pay my bills, I'm in some trouble. So I'm not saying I need to make, 7 figures, but what I'm saying is that as long as I make enough to take care of my necessities, it's ranked on a high scale for me. And that's up there with appreciation, love, friendship, all of that. Don't need to be a billionaire, but I need to be able to pay the things that I need to live with. I don't have to have cable. I don't need the fastest internet or the best iPhone 56. I just want to be able to, like, all right, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I want to have a bowl of cereal. I can have that. I don't have to worry about, okay, which meal am I going to skip for the day? So to me, it's necessary for specifically that reason.
I feel like, again, I feel like that's a trick question, because unless you want to get real cerebral, it's like, well, if all the infrastructure shuts down, money really holds no value. So it's just paper for burning. But back to the real world.
But what else what would take money's place? Because something else would
actually no
value
money
as a commodity to be traded.
Yeah, it'll be just trading. Like, I'm gonna trade you this little bunny.
All right, so let's
put
it in that world. Let's look at it like that way. Once again, I think you fumbled for the 3rd time for tonight.
What are you talking about?
Well, all right, let's deep get his point real quick and hear another opinion.
No, I want to hear how I fumbled. That's not a fumble.
All right, let's
because like it's all of your world to make sense out of it. So if you wanted to take it in its cerebral context, it's like, what if infrastructure crumbled? What would we do? I would claim this as the new monetary value, or this trade, or whatever case may be. The questions that he's pitching, to the way I see it, you can take it wherever you want.
But I'm just saying that money, yeah. So that in that example, that I'm giving, money doesn't it's not a utility. It's a utility, but it's really just, like I said, it's just utility. You don't need it to live. Water, you will die without water. You die without food. You die.
Can't eat money.
You really don't need money.
Yeah,
I think it won't taste that great.
Well, so where does it rank? Where does it rank on your list? You never mention that before Drake was in.
I mean, water.
There aren't. So you mean to tell me you do everything you do for water, right? So you don't do everything you've been doing today, all the schooling you've gotten wasn't for money?
Yes, it was because you want to wait. Hold up, I got you now. I got you because we're doing all those stuff for the essentials that we need. Like you really want to get down and real minuscule and cerebral with it. You're working to get money so that you can buy the water. Okay, so if you can work directly for the water, you'd be good.
So
no
I can't
food?
pay you in water
and food.
All right, go ahead, Dre.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think COVID has probably like enlightened me quite a bit to money. I've always had like a really kind of interesting relationship with money. I've been really fortunate kind of in my life to when my wife and I moved to California, we didn't have to, we moved without jobs, and basically kind of through hustle and whatever, money always made itself available. So I have like a very odd relationship with money. Money doesn't drive me. I would say as far as like necessities are concerned, I think my day-to-day concerns, and sorry, there's a ambulance going in the background. My day-to-day, I would say like I much more think about like my housing, right? The electricity. Like, to me, I think all of those necessities probably wait. Now I need money to pay for those things, but I would think kind of as far as like necessities are concerned, I would say like if we're talking about, let's just say if I had just enough money to like pay for rent and food or whatever, to me, all of those things would probably be more important than actually having the money in my bank account. So to me, money is not very high on my list, but I know that it supports all the things that are really important to me, like being able to turn on a light, right? Anytime I want to is really important. Being able to turn on the air conditioner, it's hot here, right? Those type of things. So to me, money is not very high on my list, but it's a necessary evil. Something I need to have a decent way of life.
Yeah, so I guess I can go here. So money is really important for me, but it's not everything. It's like that Kanye quote. I'm not sure what song that was from. I think it may be from Gold Digger, but it's like not having money is not everything, but not having it is. It's like
oh yeah, true.
it's like really like it's crazy, right? But like if I want to rank money though, or wealth or whatever, I put physical wealth at the base. And I put my emotional or my mental health at the second level. Then I put my spiritual wealth at the third level, and I put financial wealth on the top. So that's kind of how I would rank it. So because like, I mean, growing up not having anything, because I grew up in Nigeria, like my parents, we didn't have TV. We had radio, and I had to like go to other people's houses to watch TV. So like I didn't really understand what I was missing because I didn't really see other people that had a lot around me. So like the money at the point wasn't really important, but we had each other. So at that moment we had all of the three above money that we had at that moment, and he was able to make we were, I guess, happy. I didn't realize, now that when I look back, I was like, was I really happy, or I just didn't know what I was missing? But but it's kind of crazy. But now like like it's really, but nowadays though, I think money is really important because we're able to bless other people around us. We able to, the quality, this really comes down to the quality of life that we want to live. That kind of determine where we put money. So for me, I like to travel. I like to spend time with family. I like to give. One of the goals that I have personally is to sponsor a kid or two within a scholarship, because I was once a recipient of it. And that's a goal, because if you don't have money, you can't accomplish those goals. So it's kind of where I put it.
All right, Chunky, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, like everyone has their own personal opinion about it, and I respect everyone's personal opinion. If I take a jab at you, it's because I love you and appreciate you, and I want to draw more out of you. So, to me, as I mentioned before, how I see wealth, like it's important to be knowledgeable about situations. It's important to make the right decisions, and there's also friendship wealth, which we haven't talked about. So all the friends that I have around me, if you're intellectual, if you know how to make the right moves, then that makes me a better person in all facets, whether it's mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. It helps out. The important thing for me is being able to provide for my family, to be able to provide for myself as well. I can't take care of you if I can't take care of myself. I don't, like I said before, I don't need the six figures. I agree with Dre in the sense that, yeah, I want to turn on a light or I want to play the Xbox. So I'm gonna work to get that money. And my choice is to put that money into savings and have that money go further or invest that money for it to go further. I don't need to be a Jeff Bezos. I don't need to be Elon Musk, but the happiness that I get is what I'm surrounded by, that people that actually care for me and things that genuinely make me happy. Now, granted, if you want to give me, a Dodge Durango Hellcat, I'm not going to say no. That shit will make me happy as hell. But what I am saying, I do have a vehicle, and I can get from point A to point B reliably. Once I start thinking beyond that, to me, that's just being greedy, because there are people out there who don't even have a car. So I live within my means, but it's a nice to have. So I'm not going to chase money to get certain things when all my necessities are taken care of, that I can turn on the light, I can put food in my stomach, and I can have a bottle of water. So if you want to pay me in water, that's cool too. But I'd rather take a hot dog along with that.
I feel you. I guess on my take on it then is that basically, I mean, for the purpose of living and functioning and living a comfortable life, yes, money is very necessary in order to do those things. However, I feel like there's an issue with people that have already made it telling us, yeah, money isn't everything. Well, buddy, you have all the money. Of course, it's not anything to you, but kind of like to Francis's point, you don't realize how poor you are until you realize what you don't have or what you can't do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you're kind of taken out of your comfort zone and you're like, well, damn. I think especially with a lot of people that, have me being born from an immigrant family, them coming to this country and settling themselves, and just seeing how hard they had to work to acquire things to make a comfortable living for me, set the standard. I mean, none of that would have been possible without money, of course, but just coming here, they realize, well, this is a lot of things we don't have, and this is what we need to do. Mm-hmm. So that's, my point on that. I think for me, it's very necessary to have money, but I think it's very important to have a goal that you want to reach. Not that this is being money alone, but you have to strive for something in order for that money to come. And I think with that, there has to be a good understanding of how money works before you start making it, before you can become wealthy. But considering that money is not so important to you guys, I'm going to ask this question. Is there any amount of money, let's say if it was gifted to you or dropped on you, is there any dollar amount of money that could change your life today? Is there, what would it be? And is there an amount?
I mean, I guess I can go. I mean, for me, like, I don't have a number. When I was growing up, when I was in my late 20s, I had a goal for myself, by 30, hit six figures, have a house and all of that stuff. But like, one thing you don't realize is you always want to pursue more. Like you keep always moving the goal, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't really do anything for you. Like you celebrate those moments, those accomplishments at the moment, then you on to the next one, right? So like, yeah, for me, I think it's really from the goal that I have is maximizing my ability, my potential, and whatever that amount lands me is what it is. I'm not chasing no job title. I'm not chasing no dollar amount. It's like, if I finish where I'm at now, it is what it is. And if this is, really what my potential is, and this is what it is, then I can live with that. But I know my potential is greater than this. So I'm obviously going to work to keep pushing myself and whatever. So I would just leave it at that. Push yourself to maximize your ability and that whatever amount you do.
So 100 million wouldn't change your life right now? If Belcher said, yo, Francis, I got you.
$1 million, yeah, but the thing is money. Yeah, I mean, I would say thank you. Then I could pay off all my debt and like move to Puerto Rico. Hey. But yeah, it is life changing. But sometimes like what we've also learned is people like, I think Chunky brought it up. You win a lottery, like those money, people go broke. Like you don't really.
More
sometimes
money, more
like, yeah, more money, more problems. So sometimes actually it's better to just earn your money and just get it the hard way, because you actually, those dopamines, because I know sometimes it's like Facebook, when you get those likes and those comments on your posts, those dopamines are like a drug. So it's like when you accomplish your personal goals, it does feel a little bit different.
I was in like, I don't care if you give me $200 million.
Just give me a snack. Just give me a snack. I don't want to work.
I don't want to earn it. Like, nah, give me money. Like, I'll take it. Not a problem. Would it change my life? No. The reason why is that to be honest, I chase educational wealth. No matter what happens, I will never lose that. So having that knowledge to me is very, very important because I'm able to make better decisions. Sure, I can pay off a lot of debt, whether it be student loans, whether it be car debt, but to me, what are you shaking your head for?
Yo, that's straight bull right now. Chucky is feeding bull right now. You know why I say that? Okay. You know why? What? No, you know why I say that? Because he's like talking about knowledge, wealth. No, Chucky, because if I drop 1 million books in front of your house and I put a stack of 1 million next to it, you gonna walk to the books.
So all right, so
you gonna walk to the books.
Like real talk. So I'm gonna take a little bit of offense to that because if you look at my bookshelf now, I have a shit ton of books.
Okay. All right.
So no. Like straight up, like how I was in college is not the man I am today. Okay. So to set the record straight, if you think it's BS and it's BS to you, but real talk, we had this conversation before about education. Remember us going back and forth about it?
I'm not saying that education isn't important to you. I'm just saying that you would literally choose a stack of books over.
And here's the thing.
Let's get to his point. Let's get to
you know the reason why I pick education. And I don't need to say it on this podcast. There's a reason why I decided to get the education that I got and kept chasing it. Because I owe it to somebody else. So to be honest, yes, education is the most important thing to me because it's hard to achieve. It's hard to learn certain things. But if you give me the money, cool, whatever. Like I said, I'll take it. But yes, if you drop off books like, okay, this is how you can make yourself better as in understanding information when someone speaks to you. This is how you can better process information when someone gives you like this crazy ass math problem. I love reading to the point of better understanding myself and others because it makes me feel internally wealthy. It makes me feel as though I can solve a lot of different problems and be ahead of the game. So if you feel as though that's bullshit, then to you is bullshit.
But it's just
but to me is not.
No, and I'm not trying to. No, hold up. I'm not trying to say that there's no value in knowledge or information. And I understand. Yeah, you got a deeper connection to it. True that. But the main purpose of trying to decide whether wealth or not wealth is because we're trying to provide for our families and all those types of things. It's not just about the betterment of self or bettering itself. And
well, I mean, let's put it to you this way. Put in perspective real quick. If it means anything, Chunky, D Black also said that Jeff Bezos wasn't wealthy. Whatever. But listen, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. If any of you are listening, I have Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle. I will easily take 100 million. It will change my life.
Yeah.
To sum it up,
Bezos is literally number one in the world.
If someone offered to pay for me to get a PhD or to flat out hand me the money, I'll take the money for the PhD because I know at the level of education, I can make that amount of money that they're giving me and then some.
Yeah.
Let's hear another point.
I'll say. I was gonna say if somebody gave me the option of 100 million or any other degree, I'm taking 100 million. 100 million would change my life drastically. I think it would put me in a position to help out people who I know are trying to do things. I immediately think of like certain family members who, like, if I gave them like $10,000, it would change their life, right? So to me, I do think like $100 million would immediately change my life. I would definitely be doing some things differently. I would definitely move out of the apartment that I'm living in right now. I probably wouldn't blow it, but it definitely would change my life. I think change my life in a good way, and I think it would allow me to help people. Right? I think that would definitely be something that I would want to do. There's a lot of things that I'm working on kind of in my own time that I think I'd be able to do full time if me having a job wasn't a requirement. So I think $100 million would change my life immediately, and I would be like that Dave Chappelle skit with Oprah, right? Where he got Oprah pregnant in the skit. So he was basically like, they were following him around in all his interactions throughout the whole day, right? So he's like, quitting his job in the craziest way. He's, so to me, I think I would be the living embodiment of that sketch. If I got a check for $100 million today.
So definitely a question to the social media world and our listeners: 100 million books or 100 million in cash? Which would you take? If both were dropped at your doorstep, which would you take?
Taking the money. I'm sorry, I'm not taking books.
But I'll ask this one, and this will be a personal note. I guess as a person of color, do you think having more money would afford you more privileges, opportunities, or possibly equality or equal standing? Let's go ahead. Go ahead, France.
Oh yeah, I think it buys you opportunities, but I don't know if it buy you quality though, because I think Kanye, he was renting for a couple years before he was able to finally get an opportunity for some of the stuff he wanted to do. Jay-Z is another example of able to having the hard time to get into other opportunities that they want to, even though they have money, but they never, they always kind of, allude to just being Black and how hard it is to still cross that line, even though you got a lot of money, so yeah, so my answer is, yeah, it does buy you opportunities, but it doesn't buy you equality. You have to fight for it, but I think Kanye is a great example of how much, they turned him to be a crazy man because he was fighting, but I think he was able to get what he was coveted after.
I'll keep it short. I 100% agree with Francis. I think definitely money would get you access to people or opportunities, but still being a Black person in America, I still think there's things that are unavoidable. Things that you would be running into, right? Situations with police officers or whatever. Your money isn't going to shield you from from certain things, right?
Okay, cool. What about D Black? Chunky, any thoughts on that?
Nah, I ain't got nothing.
He's like, let me just settle down over here.
No, I feel like we all we've said it. I think we've beaten that horse. Money.
It's like we'll move on to the next point then.
Yeah, man.
So, I agrees with that as well. Like, money will not grant you equality. Yeah, it may give you a bigger platform you can use to push for equality, but at the end of the day, if somebody thinks you're less than, you'll always be less than no matter how much money you have. But it can afford you opportunities, of course, that you wouldn't normally have.
No, and that's the thing. I'm sorry. It's just that it's frustrating to me because the thing is that it's like we have this unrealistic mindset when it comes to money that basically it's all right. Like I said, in the society we live in, ultimately it changes everything. It changes what countries are in power. It changes who has the ability to influence things. The more you have, the more powerful you are, the more control you'll have over other people. So I think we're trying to make it we're trying to devalue it in a sense. You're trying to say it has less impact or it really can't move mountains. If you had infinite amount of money, you can buy an island. We're trying to make it seem like that's life. That stuff is life changing, and to try to say that something else equates that or has that same level of influence, I just think we're missing it.
Good point. That's definitely a good point, because you think about issues outside of countries that, let's say, don't deal with racism. Usually it is a social economic issue where simply just aren't enough opportunities or you can't afford to live. And that's a problem that's prevalent around the world. So let's talk about this. We'll start off with Chunky. Were you ever taught the importance or value of money? And if so, when and how?
Growing up, no. And it's not a slight to my upbringing. It just wasn't that level of intellect there. I laugh because I have very intelligent people in my family. And it wasn't like, okay, well, you get this money, this is where you need to put it, this is what you need to invest in. None of that was taught to me. And I didn't learn it until I started talking to D-Black. When me and D-Black became closer, I saw how he managed money. And in my head, I'm just like, yo, bruh, why would you get the knockoff brand of apple juice instead of just getting juicy juice? Like I didn't, in my head, it didn't make sense. I was like, it's a 50 cents difference. Like why?
That's 50 cents for something else.
Exactly. And like, I couldn't rationalize it. But over time, I was like, okay, this starts to make sense. That pennies, that 5 cents, that 50 cents starts to add up over time. And in my head, I'm just like, I've been through enough. I should be able to just enjoy, a Snickers bar, not a knockoff version of it, but the actual thing. It essentially tastes the same. And what I was chasing was this perception of wealth, this perception of I made it. When realistically, I didn't. I wanted to feel better about what I've been through when I haven't gone through enough. I haven't became the person I was meant to be yet, but I wanted that immediate gratification. As time went on, I started realizing that, I'm not going to get it till later. But once again, if you drop off $100 million at my house, I'm not going to say no. That's going to make the difference to a certain extent. But nonetheless, being able to learn how to manage that 100 million by reading the books will definitely help. And it's just that knowledge that I would attribute to D-Black, that most of my financial standing in the beginning was because of him. How I financially got better was because of him. And then talking to the rest of you guys in the sense of how to manage stocks and what to buy into definitely helped too, because I don't pay too much attention to it. So to me, it's just like, I don't know, man. Like money is a weird thing. And it's, I think, based off of personality, to be honest with you. So I wish I was taught how to manage money earlier. I wish that's something they actually taught in school, to like not balance a checkbook, to actually say, okay, if you purchase this at this rate and you're making this much, this is the percentage that you need to not purchase at, whatever case may be, or you need to save at this rate in order to get this at the age of 30 or 40. Just think about it. If we were saving money like we're saving now at the age of 15, we working out little jobs and putting like half of it away, we weren't really paying rent. I mean, at least I wasn't paying a car note. I wasn't paying my cell phone bill. So if I knew saving 3/4 of my paycheck as a child made a difference, or as a teenager made a difference as an adult, I would have been saving 3/4 of my paycheck.
Yeah.
Real talk.
I think that's crazy how, I mean, that's a valid point, because I think, schools don't teach us not all the essentials that we need. Finances is one of the key things that we should know. It should be a requirement to know, but it's not always upheld there.
I'll definitely echo that as well. I think one of the keys to being wealthy is understanding that there's a value to money. You got to respect money, essentially. And you'll never become wealthy until you do that. So was I ever taught that? No. Like, I think maybe it's a cultural thing, but money was just a taboo subject. Like, my parents weren't sitting here telling me, oh, we are in debt. Like, guess what? Your college money is gone because we're struggling. Like, it was never a conversation. And I think that's an issue within the Black community as well, where not enough people are having these conversations. Like, to Chunky's point, yeah, the education needs to start early. Like, even at home, like, hey, even showing someone you need to work for what you're getting. You know what I mean? I know some people probably started off with allowances. If you probably do 1 or 2 things around the house, I'll give you $1. You know what I mean? I started working at I started working at 13 under the table. And then, so basically,
what's the name of the business?
Child endangerment.
Yeah.
They got you slaving early.
Exactly. I started working early, and basically it was just like that understanding of, but I didn't know what to do with the money. You know what I mean? I just got the money.
You was balling with that little $5.
Got them Krabby Patties.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Just wasted it. Now I think like, if I had saved like at least $1 a day or something to that extent from then, that money could have matured into something more even now. And it's just to the point where as you get older, it's like life just gets more expensive. Yeah. So it's just like, and you have to be in a position to take care of yourself. So was I ever taught the value of importance? No, but I don't think it's ever too late to learn, but that's necessary to actually even just, you got to expect money to get anywhere, like to live comfortably. And I think everyone, you don't have to be wealthy or rich, but you just have to be comfortable. You know what I mean? When an emergency comes up, you got to have some money to take care of that, because health bills, like I think the highest form of debt in this country is like health related bills. And that, to me, that's just ridiculous. I mean, shout out to, Obama, doing his thing for the, the healthcare plan and everything like that, Obamacare, but
it's just expensive, bro.
It's expensive.
What insurance do you have? expensive.
Some people like one funeral, one hospital visit, that's it.
That's
Their money is
Yeah.
done.
Right.
Yeah, I remember some stat where they were saying like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but they were basically saying that most Americans don't have more than $1,500 like in their bank account, which was like really staggering to hear. You know, Glenn, very similar to you. I think money was always like a taboo subject. I think my father and my parents always just told me about like pay your bills on time and, you know, don't, you know, maybe a little bit of stuff about credit, but nothing like too like detailed. And part of that, you know, not to really, you know, I think part of that is also just because their family, you know, didn't know better, right? My dad's whole thing was like, oh, get a good job and stay there and whatever. And I was just like, that's not the path that I'm going to take, right? Like that just wasn't my, right? But in his generation, you basically worked at a company, you basically worked there for a long time. You worked there so long that, you know, depending on the company, that they had some type of what is it called? I'm really like
pension?
Some type of pension or something, you know, that basically that was his way of, he's like, yeah, work at a company. And, you know, it was crazy to him that I was like switching jobs so often, or he was really nervous about me moving to California, right? Without a job, so to speak. Right. And luckily I've never had to ask him for money. But I think money is one of those things where if I'm ever fortunate enough to have children, I think I'm definitely going to be trying to teach them about money as early as possible. And basically giving them all the information that I have so that they can, because really I think there's probably a reason why it's not taught in school, right? I think there probably is, you know, not to get all conspiracy theories, right? But you would think that there is you would think that there probably is a reason why the rich people would want poor people to stay poor, right? You know, there's all these different companies industries that are basically around lending people money, right?
Yeah,
whole credit,
true.
you know,
That's a good point,
the whole credit kind of industry. I know the payday loans, right? You know, there's all these industries that are around because of, you know, right, banks, right? You know, even the fees that the banks charge and stuff like that. You know, there's just so many things that are. There's probably a reason why it's not taught a lot in school, because right, how would some of these industries be able to make money?
I mean,
Yeah,
if people are really
like
smart about
the
that.
simple, at least, you think? I know like there was a class that was just like balancing your checkbook. And that's all it was. And like they would like, it was like a little segment in math class that just said, okay, if you're spending this, you're taking this out. But that was like the extent of it. Like just track your money.
But in math class.
But also during that time, you actually had checkbooks. We don't have checkbooks, right? So like it's one of those things where it's like now because everything is digital in some ways, you know, it's even harder because money is such a like, right? Your money is in a bank, but it's like, not like a physical thing, right? Your money, your specific money that you put in your bank account is not sitting in the bank there, right? That money is being used by the bank to generate more money, right?
Right. There should be like a class to teach me how to mine Bitcoin.
Big facts.
Blow up your supercomputers.
Yo, I do have a comment. I think one thing we need to do more in school is talk about trade schools and talk about like actually college selections, because one thing, like people are picking high expensive colleges just to go to liberal art. Like why do you end up with a non-high paying job and you have this massive student loan debt? You know, like those are some of the stuff they didn't teach us, right? And those are the conversation like, okay, what do you want to pick? Do you want to pick the experience of a 1 to 2 years in college, you know, because we all want to party with our friends, or maybe consider other options, or picking a community college and do your elective there for 2 years, and maybe you transfer, and you just think about how much money that you save when you take that path, and just kind of think about that. I mean, I'm just kind of listing options. Trade schools, some of those conversations they never made those information available to us. And so like everybody else, I didn't have those conversations with my parents. My parents never sat me down about money. One thing my parents always talk about was importance of school. They were advocates of school, even when we were back in Nigeria. Even though I was talking about my parents didn't have TVs, the money that they had, they made sure that me and my siblings went to a private school. That was their wealth. And they were able to show, and long run, fast forward, it actually paid off because we came to the US and we were able to kind of fit right in right away because we got good quality education back in Nigeria. So, but like, that's one thing that I took from my parents. I wish that like everybody else, they talked about investing, because I was watching a video recently. It talked about, if we think about how much money we've made, especially you, Glenn, you started working at 13. Think about how much money you made all your life, and you've invested maybe 15% of it. Think about how much money you have in your account right now.
That's why I'm like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. If you're listening, I got Cash App, Venmo, and
it's crazy.
Taking all donations.
I can't blame my parents, because they also they were immigrant. They don't, we are learning as we go. So like, but yeah, I wish I definitely knew that.
I was going to take to your point when it came down to private school the same way. Like, I take it to heart because, like, realistically, my undergrad degree is just as good as underwater basket weaving. It is a waste. But
that was probably mad offensive to anybody who does that.
I'm not gonna name what he does, but he's
right.
I'm not out here to offend people, but the whole thing is that I picked the school that I picked for the recognition that it had, not necessarily the degree I was getting. And that recognition has paid off in a lot of different aspects. I'm not going to lie to you. I went to the school because, one, of course, football, and two, its name brand. And I would say a lot of people will pick schools for the name brand of it. There are some really good schools that are just like swept underneath the rug, but you can get a really good education, whether it be in engineering or whatever case may be.
Yeah.
But you pick the school because it's just like, if you and I were going for a job and, my school says, and your school says, insert community college here, has a name to it, and they're going to hire me quicker than they'll hire you. And that's all realistically what it is.
Well, yeah, I get that. And what I'm saying is, instead of doing 4 years of right, and you home like maybe $80,000, what about you do 2 years undergrad at a 2-year community college and you save yourself $40,000?
It wasn't,
and you owe that, so you still have on your
the networking that I got was like the networking experience of going there for a complete 4 years. Like I wouldn't have got anywhere else if I was to do 2 years somewhere else and 2 years there.
Yeah.
I had built certain relationships, i.e. the people on this podcast now, and their job relationships that literally, like, D-Black can remember this. Like, when I used to bounce, like I couldn't, my car broke down. I couldn't drive up north anymore. So someone that actually knew about and that worked in the township over from New Brunswick hired me as a secretary and paid me $16 an hour. I was not worth $16 an hour at that point, but he knew the recognition of the school and said, okay, you're worth the money, not knowing too much of the background that I had.
I mean, I'll make one more statement, sorry, then I'll shut up. I mean, I was talking to like my VP, because one of my buddy was doing this, it was trying to decide to do an online MBA versus doing in-person versus like a high-level job school. And the question I was going to ask my VP at the time was, how much impact does that really even have on applicants when you are going through your process? And the truth is, they say it really doesn't matter until you try and get to that like that VP level. Maybe that's when the actual like schooling matters. So like in reality, like how much, I mean, in your situation, I think it worked out for you, but from a larger scale of things, like, is it really worth all of that money? But I mean, it's just, I'm not telling people what to do. It's just a question, I'm just kind of presenting different.
Let's hear from Dre.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that makes me think of that, to your point of Francis, trade schools and things like that. I was hearing some like staggering numbers about like how there's certain industries, like trade industries, that are like actually going through an issue of shortages, right? Where there's not enough people who are electricians or plumbers because those people are retiring. And those people are making some of those people are making crazy money. So I think the biggest thing is really just, really trying to, for people to really, I guess, when you're thinking about those things, not go into like, oh, it's just a trade school. Some of those people are making a lot of money, right? Who are not going to school for a long time. So it's one of those things where I think sometimes we kind of shit on those industries when everybody has a toilet, right? When your toilet breaks, I don't know how to fix my toilet, right? If it breaks, right, I'm calling the plumber, right? So to me, there's
I'm going
to
YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, of course, yes. I will go to YouTube and try to figure it out on my own, but sometimes there's problems that are not.
Well, I think that goes into like the prejudice selection, and not,
Yeah.
there's some prejudice there, obviously, and that's the reason why people are willing to pay those high fees for these schools, because they know that, hey, to reference Chunky's point, there's a better chance of me getting in because I'm affiliated with this brand. Think about it. If you had an attorney, and let's say you're on death row, and you found out that your lawyer went to either one of the most prestigious universities in all of the country, or he went to a community, you have the choice between picking him and then a lawyer, him or her, or a lawyer that went to a community college. Which one are you most likely going to pick?
Of course. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess when you put it that way,
I'm picking the experience.
Yeah, when you put it that way, but there are some people who get into those prestigious schools just based off of money. I don't know if you saw that special on Netflix.
Yeah, the celebrities.
But that was a really interesting thing where basically they were showing how people were getting into these prestigious schools just by making donations, really large, ridiculous donations, and getting degrees from these. And they even said it in the documentary. They're just like, sometimes we put too high of value on these institution names when you're getting just as good of an education. I understand what Chunky was saying. I do think that there is that is all true as far as like the schools having brand names and just immediately getting a certain level of respect because you went to a certain university. But it was just really interesting for them to talk about how the top sort of quote unquote universities are all just kind of fighting with each other to try to make themselves seem more exclusive because they'll let less people in so that they can then get a higher on the ranking. So I don't know. It was a really interesting thing. I can't remember the name of the thing on Netflix, but it was a really interesting take on colleges and the industry of college and how they kind of operate.
Just to clear up a certain stance I was indicating, but not that I agree with it either. I definitely hear what everyone's saying. Like, everything should be based off of merit. But essentially, I think what to chime in on back on what Francis was saying, I think a part of the problem is that, and you guys can speak from your experiences as well, how clear was it to you about how you were going to pay for college? Like, I feel like there's a lot of mystery involved in how am I actually going to fund this? Like, what are my avenues? What are my options? Because it's like, if I'm not playing a sport, I'm not getting a D1 scholarship of some sort, how am I actually going to pay for this? And then your first option usually to turn to is either like financial ed or loans. And it's when you get hit with those loans that's the problem. So it's just like, when it comes to going to these schools, before you even select the college, it needs to be said, yo, how are you paying for this? You know what I mean? What are you trying to do? How are you paying for it? I think that needs to be established first. Now, Chunky, you were going to make your point.
Yeah, that was already looked at before I hit any school. I don't know, for me, it's just like, all right, money is important to the point. It's like, okay, well, insert school here for the year, it's $30K. I'm in-state, so in-state worked for me. I can go to another school that's just equatable as this one, but I'll have to pay double the amount. I know some people that went to end up having like 120 grand in student loans for 4 years. And some people in-state end up with like 60 or less than that. So yes, when you look at taking out student loans, it's highway robbery to me. So I took out a loan from a certain bank, and it was $2,500. I ended up paying like $4,000 back. It was just ridiculous. And like, just think about it, people are taking out 30, 40 grand at a time and having to pay it back. Like, these banks are making so much money off of people's education, and they understand the value of that school. So I had the opportunity to go to 2 different schools in the state of New Jersey. One of the schools I went to, I'm not going to say their name, I was getting pretty much a 3.9. And I didn't show up to class. I didn't do my homework. But when I transferred, it was a lot harder. So different schools have different curriculums. And to Dre's point, I think that's very interesting, because it's just like, now schools are just arguing like how exclusive we are. Like, oh, we only took in 10% of the applicants this year. Well, you did 10, we did 9.5. Oh, we did 8. And then that's the competition. And yes, we lose focus on how important that education is, how important or how hard the curriculum is. Like we lose the value of what we're going to get for the future. And we're looking at the immediate, like, oh, well, I have this name stamped on my back, so I'm better than you. But if you were to stack that person against the school that let in at 10%, they're not. But I mean, to each his own. There are some kids we went to school with, D-Black and I, and even I guess the rest of us, that weren't really that bright, but ended up being in that school and ended up like passing. Not to say that they're dumb at all because they made it into college, but they weren't what you would expect coming out of that university. So I think it's a mixed bag of goodies and a mixed bag of, chocolates. So
no problem.
That's just what it is.
Okay, so let's go back to the topic then, and thank you guys for all your points. I think you sent me some really excellent points there. So let's get back on the topic of wealth and finances. Do you feel there's an intentionally misguided notion of wealth or finances fed to working class people or communities of color? And that could be done via the mainstream media or different social media outlets. If so, what are they, and why do you feel that way? And then we could start off with franchise.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that, because I think there's just a set of information that's image that's portrayed in social media or even media, that kind of dilute the minority perspective, especially Black Americans. Because all you see when you see people, we talk about, you see chains, gold, necklace, cars, and we're not really focused on investing and stuff like that. And I feel like, that's kind of how, like, our community is still staying back because we're not getting those information readily available to us, And I know more recently, in the Black community, investing, crypto, we have, Jay-Z and Nas constantly, they've been kind of shedding more light into those kind of stuff. And so I think we are, slowly getting into that space, but we still got a long way to go. One interesting stat that I remember, I was in a African descent meeting at my job like a couple of years ago, and one of the financial guys said, at my job, and mind you, the average salary at my company is about 72,000, and they said like less than 50%. I don't remember the exact number of the Black Americans in my job were investing, were taking advantage of the match, the 401k benefits, stuff like that, which was insane to me, because you would think people who work in a job like that, educated, but people are still not utilizing it. So it's like, we need to do better, getting those information out to our people and pushing each other to kind of think beyond the material stuff and think more of investing and thinking more about future.
Okay, good point. And then just to kind of reiterate the question, and Francis, I think you tackled that properly. Do any of you feel there are intentionally misguided notions of wealth and or finances fed to working class people or communities of color, either via mainstream media, social media? If so, and why, and what are they? And I guess to tackle this one, I do feel like there are some probably misguided notions on riches and wealth and finances that are fed to working class people. I mean, me personally, I feel like if you aren't on either end of the spectrum, if you're like a middle class, working class person, this country is basically screwing you. Like, you're probably paying the most in taxes, you're probably working the hardest, and it's just like you're just getting nowhere. And it's either you have to be dirt poor or extremely wealthy or extremely rich to really prosper in this country, or get to the point where you're in a somewhat comfortable living situation. Because essentially, if we take out the biggest group, which is that working class people, I think this capitalist economy would somewhat collapse. But I think like communities of color are now getting into the notion of cryptocurrency, and we see a lot of articles going out today where you see like a lot of Black social media influencers are getting more people into the crypto and Bitcoin exchange and sense. And I think that's perfect and fine. But at the same time, is what to do with that money once you get it. And also understanding, especially with crypto, the tax implications also as well. So before you start selling any of your Dodge or coin or Bitcoin or Ether, just remember, you want to pay some taxes on that. Them capital gains taxes are crazy. So, but I think definitely it's essential that we understand that money is a tool, wealth is a tool, and how to use it. It isn't just a means to an end, but it really is a tool that can make your life for better if you mishandle it for worse.
So I agree with what you're saying, Glenn. And I heard what Francis said, like, oh, well, Jay-Z is saying this and Nas is saying that. I'm pretty damn sure a teacher along the line told you how to manage your money somehow, some way. I don't think we should put it on celebrities to tell us what to do with our finances. It should be something that you can go out and earn. If you can go on Instagram and look at whatever you want and hit a whole bunch of likes, or TikTok, you can definitely put in, oh, how do I manage my money on Google, or find a financial advisor to do that. I think we're in a day and age where you can look up almost anything and everything and have an answer. So for people who don't, there are people in this country who still don't have internet, which I think is wild. Is that it's so vastly available, and to hear that, oh well, this particular section of the state doesn't even have cell phones either. There's no cell phone towers, and it's just like you're depriving them of a high level of information if they want it. But when it comes down to managing your money, just because someone tells you to do something a certain way or tells you where to invest it, once again to Glenn's point, doesn't mean I know what to do after I get it. Some people didn't know they had to pay a capital gains tax on the Doge or whatever crypto that they're getting. Like, oh man, I got $1 million in crypto. I'm good. But yet there's still more after that. How do you manage your taxes? How do you break your taxes down to the point where you're only paying what you need to pay and you're not getting a tax return at the end of the year? Because that means you're making the appropriate amount of input into the government, and there's nothing else they can take back from you. That's not something that we're taught. That's something that's very important, because that's more money in your paycheck to have as disposable income to invest, to put somewhere else, or to get that actual Snickers bar, not the knockoff brand. So it's the simple things like that, which I think is important. But I don't look to a celebrity or a high person at a status that isn't a financial advisor, or B is actually telling me the entire situation. If someone says, hey, invest your money in this, also buy my book, it breaks down everything you need to know in the simplest form possible. There's a whole bunch of resources for you in there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to more likely listen to this person more and start following them. I'm not just going to be hooked on like, oh, I can buy a Maybach, I could buy some red bottoms or whatever case may be. Like, okay, how do I make this last for generations? Like, how do I need to move my money around so I don't have to wait 30 years later to buy that Ferrari? I can buy that Ferrari 10 years down the line and still have money in the bank.
And I think a part of that issue as well is just that a lot of people see it, they see things online. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. How many of you guys have bought, what's that guy on social media? You'll see a lot of them. The influencers will have like 10 Lamborghinis in front of this big old grand mansion. And honestly, if you're from a perspective where you're like, oh, listen, this next check I'm about to get is probably going to be my last check. So it's kind of like, yo, I need to get what they have now. And it's the way things are packaged and made and sold to us, and sold to this anyone, working class or people of color. It's just so easy to get lost up in the idea that this is all instant gratification. And then I can replicate what he did. Like, he started off with nothing. I can do it too. But, like you said, there's a lot more to it than that. And that's a part of the trap there as well. Did we have any more groups from talking points from anyone on that topic? You looking a little quiet.
No, I'm good.
Good. All right. Still worried about that Jeff Bezos comment? Don't worry.
Nah, man.
I was gonna say D Black is good, man. He he made some good
Mr. Nida.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mr. Crypto over there, man. This guy listened to the group chat and made some smart moves.
That's why I say, I mean, knowledge is power, right?
Yeah,
the knowledge Monopoly is, though.
Y'all need to buy this. He said, "Nah,
but
Monopoly though."
But Glenn, I do have a comment about your statement about the capital gain, because I think it's based on preference. Because if let's say you invest $1,000 and you had a 8x and your stuff is now like at 9K, bro. Like, I'd rather take that money and sell it and pay my 30%. Whatever it is, because I don't know what's going to happen to that money. It may go back down to $1,000, because that's what I mean. Because when I think about what just happened this past year in the stock market, like I lost all my gains from last year because the market crashed. Oh, well, it didn't technically crash. There was a correction, there, and we're still in the midst of it. But when I think about it, I was like, well, I'd rather just take the money out and pay whatever the 30%. I'm still like whatever $1,000 richer than I was when I started. It's like, it's part of I feel like maybe we just need to, it's more preference based and kind of make a decision what you prefer to do. Use still more money you didn't have before. So
I think what he's saying. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Trey.
I was gonna say I'm not a financial advisor, but there are things that you can do instead of just cashing out the money. You can convert. We're talking about crypto, you can convert one crypto to another crypto, and from what I understand, you don't have to pay. No. Depending on if you have Coinbase, yeah. If I have Coinbase, I can convert Ethereum to. Hold on. If I have Coinbase, for example, I can convert Ethereum to Bitcoin and vice versa. And from what I understand, you don't need to pay. Again, see your financial advisor. But my understanding is you don't have to pay capital gains tax as long as you're not withdrawing that money into your bank account. So if you're converting it from one currency to another, I don't believe there is. I could be wrong.
It doesn't work like that. Maybe, that's what I'm saying.
That's how it works on Coinbase.
I don't know if that rule applies with crypto since we still don't know. But in stock, it does not work like that. When you
because you're selling. You're selling you're selling the stock. But I'm saying for crypto, you can convert one to another. So if depending on where you have it, right, you can convert from one to another and be good and not.
I agree with that. I don't know what the rule with that is, but I remember when I learned that with stock, it doesn't matter if it's still in your account, as long as you realize that gain and you buy another stock, you still have to pay gains on it. So, which is crazy to me.
So I think what Glenn was saying was to the point that, you correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, is just that knowing how it actually functions and works is not as simple as we think it may be. Like if I make 9K, I'm taking out 9K. There are wiser moves to make with that to maximize the money that I already have sitting there. So it's all an educational piece. And I understand your point of preference, but I don't think Glenn was talking about preference. Like, I think he would agree, like, if you make 9K, you're going to get hit with 30%, whatever, you're still making good bank. But in a sense that, okay, if I shift it here, my money's starting to grow even more. I shift it there, it's growing even more. So by the time I take it out, I understand what I'm going to lose paying taxes. So I already corrected for that. So I already know what I'm expected to get, and I can financially plan accurately to keep moving forward.
Yep. Chunky, you hit it right there on the head. And that's exactly the point I was getting into. And, everyone's situation will be different, but it's important to know once you sell that, you have to pay taxes on it. There's going to be some people out there getting caught with Wesley Snipes and probably not paying the taxes. And they're going to get hit with some time or this hefty bill. And they're going to be like, well, damn, I just spent my Bitcoin. What am I going to do now?
I would definitely say don't sell all of your stock if you want to do a fraction of it, but don't sell all of it. But I just want to state that because I'm not telling people, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not saying you should sell all of your coin and your stock and take the money out. You can definitely do a fraction.
You have the disclaimer. Don't worry.
They know.
On top of the disclaimer,
they look at our gains and stuff. They're like,
I'm
not getting that out the way. If you got crypto, hold on to it. Do not sell it. Do not sell.
We're gonna sell no crypto.
Hold that.
Virtual gold. All right, so let's get into our last 2 points, and one of which will be our finisher. So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this discussion. Is it possible to be poor and happy with all the understanding that we have, all your understanding of your definitions? And I'll let D-Black go first since you've been on the silent stick. Is it possible to be poor and happy, brother? Mr. Naira, tell us, is it possible?
I ain't gonna say Mr. Naira because the Naira is not even. Oh man. I haven't seen a Naira in forever with the exchange rates and everything like that. Oh gosh. But poor and happy. Well, I think it comes down to, obviously what you value in life. Because again, money is still paper, right? And if you decide to go live in the forest, live a very simple life, you have a little farm and everything like that, then ultimately, money doesn't mean anything to you. So yes, you're poor in financials, but I guess you're happy in the life that you've chosen for yourself.
So I guess I'll challenge you on this. If you knew that tomorrow I may not be able to buy my next meal. Would you be happy? I know how much you love food.
Was he eating that old Chinese food from like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't need to buy my next meal. I still got some Chinese
human disposal.
Yeah,
I used to call him the human reservoir.
Oh, please, cut it out.
But no, it's a legit question. If you knew tomorrow I may not be able to buy my next meal, can you find happiness in that?
I mean, obviously, because in a sense, and like that, no, you wouldn't. Because you'd be without, life is about fulfillment and being, and even if it comes from food or people or, you can't be happy in that situation.
So it's not possible to be poor and happy.
Man, that's a tough spot.
I still
feel like I still feel like you could be poor and happy, but again, it still really comes down to your context of poor.
Understood. All right, let's drill someone else. Dre, what's your take?
So I'll ask you a question first. So when you say, can you go into more detail on what poor is? Because I think we'll all like give our like very spin on like what poor is to us. So could you just, for the sake of me giving like a really cogent answer, could you tell me what you're saying is poor? Because
and I'll be a little retrospective on this one, because that's why I asked everyone to define poor being versus wealthy, because everyone will have their own definition. But to me, I'll give you my definition and we could run with that as an example. To me, poor is kind of like what I identify. Imagine that one thing you really need to make your life perfect or great, right? And just not always having it. Just knowing that there's a chance that I may not have this or I do not have it. Like pretty much paycheck to paycheck, possibility of not being able to buy that next meal, possibility of not being able to foreclose. If you know that if I go to the hospital, that could be the end of me right then and there, to me, that's poor. So the possibility of being without or just not having the basic necessities you need to live a comfortable life. So understanding that, we'll just use that, not having the basic necessities to live a comfortable and fulfilling life, to me, that is poor. So with that understanding, can you be happy?
In the way that you framed it, I don't believe you can. Because the reason why I asked you that, and while you was asking me that, I quickly looked up like what are the like 5 basic like human like needs. And to me, right, so I found it's oxygen, water, food, protection from elements, and sleep. So underneath that container, if I had all of those things, then and I was considered poor, then yes, I think I could be happy. It wouldn't be my choice.
If you don't, let's say you have 3 of those 5 things. Like obviously you'll have supply to oxygen. I mean, we're not paying for oxygen yet.
Hold your breath.
Not yet. Not yet. Why you don't do that? Jeff Bezos may figure out a way to do it. D-Black will be the first on the list to not get it.
God damn.
Told him he's broke.
No, Elon Musk is going to get it.
We're not paying for oxygen, so that's one we can eliminate. Water, I mean, water is abundant, but obviously you can't drink beach water. So, that's a little iffy. You need to buy actual drinking water.
Yeah, we're paying for water now.
Because there's people in Flint, Michigan who will tell you otherwise that water is water.
Till this day. So shelter. Okay, if you're poor, you're either living on the street making your own shelter, or no shelter at all. Like
it was protection from the elements. It was protection from the elements that made it like more specific.
So I know in Jersey we deal with seasonality. So when it's coming to October, September, that weather's gonna drop. It's a miserable place to be without shelter. You know what I mean? So we'll look at that as an example as well. So you don't have those things. At that point, can you be happy? Or at least hey, today I have it, tomorrow I don't. That fact that there's a possibility the next day you're not gonna have that access.
Yeah, for me personally, no. But I do think, I have different like whatever. So for me personally, no. I do think it's possible for someone else. I've seen people here in California on the street who look like they are having the time of their life in their tents and other things. So for me, no, but I do think it's possible for other people.
Well, I'm gonna define poor as, the way I defined it earlier, because growing up, I think, my family was poor. we didn't have a lot. We had enough just to survive and put food on the table. There was a lot of hand-me-downs and, go to your cousin's house and pick up some clothes and some shoes and you wear it and you make it look good and bam, you got a new clothes and new outfit to go for another couple of years. So for me, but one thing I learned from my parents though, like they were very grateful for even though they didn't have a lot, they were very grateful for the things they did have, and that's kind of like the rule that I've like one thing I've taken away from my parents. And when I see other people do way better than I do and stuff like that, because you have to be content with what you do have, because that whatever you do have, there's somebody out there that want, what you have. So you have to be in that space. So I think you can be happy and be poor because you are thankful for the things, the minimum that you have, you are thankful for it because some other people barely have after what you do have. So like that's why I would say yes to that question.
Cool. So I believe what we're talking about here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs when it really boils down to it. And it's the need for, Drayson at shelter, the physiological needs, the safety needs, the love and belonging, esteem, and self-accusation. So for me, when I look at poor, I look at financially poor and you can still be happy in the sense that how I grew up, my mother didn't make the most amount of money. But I tell you straight up, we had a good fucking time. So there's a lot of different things that she made sure that she took care of us on. She made sure that we played football, made sure that we were in karate, made sure that we read, made sure we played an instrument, made sure we went on vacation, all that stuff. It wasn't the most extravagant things, but it was something that if I pull from my memory bank today, I can still laugh about it because it's so great. So I was happy where I was. Moving forward, things get redefined. Like things became more important to me. Like, okay, I want to be able to have that same experience, but then amplify it. In order to amplify it, I'm going to have more resources, whether that resources be financial or whether that resources be actual human resources. I wanted to expand upon that. So my shelter is met, my food is met, my bottled water that I can give to D Black is met. So what's the next thing? Like I want to feel loved and belonged, and that's a part of happiness too, correct? So the way we look at it is just that I can be poor and still be happy if everything else in that realm is wealthy. If I'm loved by a whole bunch of different people, I'm good. If I feel confident in things that I can do, I'm good. But if you start taking away those things, then no, I cannot be happy because I'm just on the lower end of the spectrum altogether. So realistically, money to me isn't everything. I think the life that you live and how you live it and the people that you live it with means a lot because you can be the most ballingest dude in the world. If ain't nobody try to hang out to you, I think it was like a question in one of these podcasts that Glenn asked if like you had some obscene amount of money, but then you have to transition for something else. You can't be with anybody. Would you take the money? Would you take the people? So that kind of speaks volumes to that. It's just that basic needs wise, I think we will all agree saying that we would rather have the people that we have around us instead of $1 million and be by ourselves or $1 billion and just be alone.
$1 billion though?
By
yourself? I don't know. I'll take my millions of books.
Exactly. In today's day and age, $1 million is not even that much anymore.
It'll change my life. I'll take it.
The B.
With $1 billion or $1 billion books?
$1 billion? Absolutely.
1 billion with a B.
Absolutely $1 billion. That's an easy choice for me.
There's not a lot of people with $1 billion. Bro.
I know. You need a realm of your own, bro. With $1 billion, I use 1 million to buy 1 billion books. How about that?
I value man at that point. The highest value man you can be at the B level.
I guess I'll throw my tidbit on this one. To me, like I think poverty is somewhat of a mentality, but you don't really realize how poor you are until you're without, and until you realize, hey, I need money to actually until you're thrusted. Like I think you're only happy to is conditional happiness. You're happy to an extent to where you realize your condition doesn't allow you to progress any further. So all it really takes is that one expense that you can't afford that's probably detrimental or life-changing to then change how happy or am I really? Like
true.
if I'm poor and I have a dying family member and I can't afford to get them the care that they need, and I don't have the other resources available to help me, then it's kind of like, well, how happy will I be in that situation? So it's kind of like, to me, it's like a conditional happiness until you then realize I am without and I am on, this is a situation that you cannot reverse because quite frankly, you need money to do certain things.
Glenn, I have a question for you. How do you evaluate like the time frame of happiness? Is it like a year spectrum, or is it, do we look at it at a daily frame? How do you quantify like the time frame of happiness? Like how do we aggregate that in a, I guess, in a math terminology?
I feel like to quantify it would be kind of unjust because there's a little bit more things in play. Like I can be miserable for a really long time. You know what I mean? I mean, I can have everything that I need, but I'm miserable because I don't have that one thing. You know what I mean? So it's just really a matter of what's afforded to you within that time. So I can't really, I think when we're children, we're probably our happiest, granted that we were raised in the proper conditions. We were blissfully ignorant. For the most part, if you were being taken care of, you were fine. But up until the point where you start taking care of yourself and you realize that you're without, that's when the script really changes, especially if you don't have access to resources. So to me, it's just a matter of what's actually afforded to you. I mean, you have some grown people that are being taken care of till this day still, and they're okay with that. And then you have other people that want to go out and do their own and probably can't afford to do so, and that's a part of the problem. And so to me, there's really no way to quantify it, but it's all about the conditions that you're in.
So I would say I would not quantify it by time. I would quantify it by emotional reaction. So you figure your happiest people that go through like a stressful time, they kind of easily roll through it because they have a lot of happiness in that bank, right? They have a stock of happiness they haven't expended yet. And when that frustrating situation comes, when that depression situation comes, they take out from that happiness stock and they put it down. And depending on how much they put on it, depends how quickly they can get through it or how they can manage it, if that makes any sense. So I would say for my instance, like I've been through a couple of things, and I would say overall how I quantify happiness, I'm a very happy man. And I attribute that to one, my upbringing. And this is going to sound crazy too, to my brother for sure, because he did a lot of things for me as a kid that I can never repay him for. There are a lot of instances where like he cooked for me, he took care of me and taught me a lot of different things. I'm very happy about that. And then the people that I meet gave me that happiness. So when I went through tough and challenging times, I was able to see it through because of my bank and stock of happiness. And that's how I would quantify it, is that everything that comes as adversity, I'm able to make it through it without too much taken away from me.
Yeah, because there's one time, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation, but I'm sure we all have, right? Maybe I know that we all kind of travel and get to see different places, but one time I went on a work trip to Mumbai, India, and it was kind of like one of the first times in my life where I realized like how fortunate like I was, right? I think I always kind of understood, privilege that we have, but being born in the US, right? But seeing like people like living on the street, like whole families, like that was like a really kind of one of those things where it really kind of puts things into perspective, right? Probably what would have made some of those people happy was literally just like sleeping in a hotel, right? So I think that's the other thing is that this conversation really, not to get all super emo, but it really kind of just reminds me of how fortunate I am, right? That we're able to be on computers talking to each other and having these conversations, right? Where there's people who are not, so I think it's kind of all on us to make sure that we're doing something to give back and move things forward.
So I'll get to one more point before we get to our finisher. I'll ask this before we get to the finisher. Are there some problems that money cannot solve? What's your take on that? I see a lot of yeses. So
yeah, I'll go first. I'll go first. You mentioned it, Glenn. Like like for example, my father is like pretty much lost his eyesight, right? Like so to me, there's no amount of money that could at least not that I could think of, that could get his eyesight back, right? And I'm sure if he had $100 billion, I'm sure he would pay that, right, to get his eyesight back, right? So I do think there are, especially when it comes to like health and stuff like that, like, right, there's no amount of money that you can spend in some cases to fix things. So yeah, I would say there isn't.
Yeah. D-Black,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, well, no, money's a life or death. I think money, like when it comes to money, it's about like life or death situations, and that's gonna be, I guess, the exception. Like if it's a life or death situation, you can't fix that with money, you know. So I don't know. That's gonna be like that's gonna be the only cutoff for me.
Okay, Chunky.
I echo both what Dre and D-Black are saying. I have my own personal experience, so I like really have nothing much to add to that. It's just going to be the same thing that they're saying, but in a different situation. Gotcha. But yeah, I agree with them.
Okay, franchise.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think money, it's either if mental state or physical liabilities and limitations. Yeah, so
gotcha. All right, no doubt, and I echo that as well. So let's jump into our finisher before we go into the close. Do you think there are ways we could invite happiness into our lives without amassing money or wealth? Yes or no, and how?
I think yes, there is a way, because if you get value in people, that adds happiness. I mean, it kind of relates back to that question where you're saying, if you have $1 million, $1 billion living on an island by yourself, like what do is that happiness? I don't think so. So I think just by, amassing, people and relationships and stuff like that, you can still build happiness without the money.
Chunky, you want to go next?
Echo the same thing. I'll just say, look at this podcast. I'm very happy with the men that I'm speaking to and can speak to on a daily basis. So it's brought a lot of wealth to my life, and I know like what people are listening, what they don't hear is sometimes when we talk like off the mic, how I am and how we get into it. But I know at the end of that conversation, it's still love for one another. And to me, that's like one of the most important things. Like I have my moments where I go off the deep end and it becomes an issue, but we're able to laugh about it. We were talking about steak the other night. So it's the thing that I value to a high extent. And like even with Dre, like him and I talk on the side too. And unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to like talk to Francis about a couple of different things, but that time is coming. But it's brought a lot of wealth to me, a lot of emotional wealth that money can't replace.
Yeah, to add to that, I think one of the easiest ways to kind of to bring happiness into your life, and this is kind of borderline a cheesy thing to do. I will just kind of give that disclaimer before I don't do this every day with my wife, but there are times where right before we go to sleep, we will talk about the things that we are really grateful that happened to us that particular day. I know there's some people who preach about doing it every day. I think it's probably, for me, it's a little too much to do every day, but the times when we do that, it does give me immense happiness, right? To think about all the fortunate things that we're able to do, right? The people maybe we're able to help out, right? So I think that is one of the really easy things that you can do. Maybe you don't do it before you go to sleep, or maybe you don't do it every day, but I would say no matter what situation you're in, I would hope that you could find some happiness in what is going on with your life, right? Or maybe it's a way for you to think about how you can get to a place of happiness, right? Maybe you reflect on the things that maybe you're not happy about, whether it's relationships with your family, right? If you're not happy with those, you have the power to change those, right? In some cases. But yeah, I think that's kind of an easy trick if you to really reflect on what has made you happy, whether it's that day or this month or this year or whatever it is, would be my tip.
Thanks for making us look bad. All of us that are married.
Well, you can present it today. Do it before the podcast comes out. And then you can just say it was your idea.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Like, it was just like, damn, I forgot to mention my own wife. Like, what?
That's funny. No, I mean, I do agree with Andre, actually. Yeah, my wife and I, we try to do that. You know, we got that from, you know, a couple that we spoke to. So but we don't do it often. We try to, but it doesn't happen. But yeah, but as far as things you could do, I've been trying to like process that question in my head. Like, but I think it's really kind of focusing on the things that, you know, like that I kind of talked about earlier, our mental state, which kind of ties to our emotional well-being, you know, which kind of tied to family, wife, and relationship that we build with people around us. And really finding work and life balance is really important too, which is kind of tied to that, to your emotion, to your mental state. Then I think you also kind of bring it back to kind of your physical state, which is like kind of working out, getting in the gym, you know, stuff, eating better. So kind of tie everything back to just the basic, you know, and when we kind of get the foundation really real tight and we get it real at a good place, then, you know, then I think the money part kind of comes into play. But yeah, so I would just kind of echo what everybody else saying and kind of some of those additional points.
Nah, definitely, Fran. You definitely brought some bangers there. You took some of my points too. So I'll just go ahead and just drop the pieces in my, you know, G Ransom version. But I think the problem with a lot of us and not being able to attain this ideal, this thought of happiness, and just being so easily sucked into what we see online on social media or around us, is that a lot of us just don't know what we really want out of life. You know what I mean? It's just kind of easy to just harp on what somebody else is doing because they look happy. But at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to make you happy. So it's just like, I think that ideal of happiness or attaining it requires a certain knowledge of self. And the only way they were able to do that is by wealth of mind, body, and spirit, to kind of echo Francis. It's like just staying healthy in mind, body, and spirit to allow you the opportunities to constantly learn and grow and develop. And I think, you know, human interaction is the purpose that we're here for. You know, one of the most essential nutrients that we need is vitamin D. And without taking a pill, the only way you're going to get that other than food and pills is by going outside. So it's just like one of the things I learned from the pandemic is it's basically going out there, spending time, like finding that balance, like being locked in this quarantine. You know, it's so easily to lose that. And I felt like I was in a place where I was just not happy and I wasn't able to identify what the source was. So it was just like this constant reminder that I do need that interaction, and just knowing that about myself, finding ways to attain that, and recognizing the people around me, importantly, and paying more attention to them was something that I learned throughout this whole experience. So, you know, to echo what everyone else said, once you're on that deathbed, there's no amount of money that can bring you back. So it's just like, to me, knowing that I did the best that I could with my time here is what's going to make me happy.
When you said vitamin D, I did not think the sun.
Oh, think about it. She wanted that vitamin.
Oh, that's funny. I wasn't sure where it was going with that. So,
okay, so was it a lumber waistline statement?
Guys are so gross.
Thank you.
Okay. Gross.
Hey, yo,
appreciate it.
Wait.
Hey, you
Glenn,
did this yourself,
yeah, I was gonna say, Glenn, we got enough examples in the group chat to prove why we were all for a second holding our breath on what you meant by
vitamin D. Okay, from the sun. Good. And you know what? It's an essential nutrient for men. And I actually take capsules of it, and I'll just pop that into, you guys can't see, but you know, it's all good. So with that being said, for more content or to learn what our next topic will be, please feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesday. Stay tuned for the outro to learn more ways to reach out to us and send us your feedback. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Until we see you again, stay blessed. Peace.
Peace.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.